Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Kristin Steele. Kristin currently serves as chairwoman of Doozy Solutions, a software company focused on delivering business management tools and insights to beverage alcohol producers. Previously, as co-founder and co-CEO of Doozy, she drove corporate strategy, led revenue functions, and drove the culture of customer success and employee development. Prior to Doozy, she gained her proficiency for systems and processes through her early careers and was foundational to the technology and management consulting practice at Hine and Associates. She has lots of experience leading teams and building businesses. So welcome to the podcast, Kristin.
Thank you.
I am excited for our conversation, and I would love to hear more about your experience in leading teams and your mindset, and maybe even some self-care practices while building a business or company. But can you start the conversation by just sharing just a little bit more about you, your personal journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and grew up in kind of that outdoorsy culture. And then went to school in Southern California and found myself in Colorado after. And I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So as I moved out here with I had a dual major in economics and Spanish. I was in sort of the explore everything mode, and definitely had a career that bounced around a little bit. I tried out banking and recruiting and different forms of logistics and business operations, and then also some marketing. And I felt like that all really came together and I understood it well when I transitioned about maybe 12 years ago into a consulting role, where I was part of a technology management consulting practice. And finally, all of these different roles where I'd helped implement systems, or I had, as I said, tried out all these different hats that you wear in the business environment. I found that that gave me great perspective to be a consultant and to understand the needs of the business as well as the personalities of the humans that make up that business. And then we kind of had discovered that there was a need within the beverage alcohol space. And about 8 years ago, an opportunity presented itself where was able to go try out the startup life and build a company that would meet the needs for the beverage alcohol space. So did that for the last 8 years, and then stepped away last fall and took a little time to myself, and am really enjoying kind of the rediscovering yourself process in taking that time and allowing myself to think and feel and just kind of get back into who is Kristin and what am I about? Because startup life, as many people know, is just crazy. So yeah, that's been my journey, and I'm actually going to be starting a new thing here in May. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, sometimes, entrepreneurs and people that, build things and are curious about different things, they don't stay, kind of stagnant for long. Like they need a rebuilding time, but there's always that curiosity and that challenge that's inside them that needs, oh, a new opportunity arises. So I see that that might be coming up here shortly.
Yes, yes. I think it's something that people don't always tell you, and I felt really eager to jump right back in. I knew I needed a little bit of time, but I felt more eager, and the longer I had off, the more I realized how much I needed that time. And I think candidly, the subconscious is telling you something when you're like, "Do I need to go do that thing today?" Like, maybe not. Maybe I should stay home and spend the time with myself. So,
Yeah, yeah, that is the joy. That is the joy. So let's back up a little bit and can you talk a little bit about more about like your leadership roles? Because I feel like you have stepped into a lot of different roles, it sounds like over the years. And I'm really intrigued about, how you've learned how to work with so many different people. Because some of those life experiences, we think we jump around. Like there's a lot of people that think they jump around a lot. But if you take a step back and look at it, like what did you learn from those experiences that allowed you to be a better leader?
absolutely. I think, like anyone, I started in some entry level type positions at various companies, and you sort of learn what the different personalities are in any of those, right? You may have quiet people that are very data driven, or not necessarily data driven, but in a data heavy job, and they just want to focus to get their job done for the day. You may have people that are in more public facing roles, and so they want to be out and be chatty, including coming by your cubicle or whatever very frequently, and you know the water cooler talk that people will do in those environments. And so I think I also worked with kind of all ages in my early career in those different roles that I held. And so I just came to appreciate that there's there's a human element to everybody that you're dealing with. And because I did that bounce around a little bit, I always was adapting to, okay, who am I working with now? What am I focused on for me? But how do I make sure I'm working well within the group?
Mhm.
And I was able to bring all that together, I think, well, also because I grew up just two older brothers that were 6 and 8 years older than me. So I was kind of always around people that were older than me, either whether that was the social element of my brothers or also that my parents would take me out to events and things that were, I was just the only kid or, you know, sometimes the only kid. And so I was recently telling somebody else that I think as I interacted with a lot of executives in one of my early roles, they didn't intimidate me. I wasn't concerned that, oh gosh, these are, you know, big important people. I had that respect for them, but I remembered that they were just people and that you can ask them, how was your day? How's, you know, just engage with them. And that I think was foundational for me in getting really comfortable. And then as I've continued to grow into my leadership roles, sort of in my mid-career, that helped me relate really well as I was moving within the businesses that I was working in as well. In my brief stint in recruiting, I was at an agency, so I'm interacting with, you know, the hiring managers as well as all the people at various levels that I'm trying to place. And when I was at a couple of the other companies in between, I was doing sort of that internal requirements gathering or that internal consulting, if you will. And again, you're interacting at all levels. You need to figure out how to relate to the people and uh, take the visual cues as well. Is this a bad time? Should I come back? You know, those kinds of things.
Yeah, those nonverbals can be like, shouting in your face or just a little bit subtle. And we do have to remember it's not just our agenda, right? It's like there's so many people they have their own little agenda. They have their own little thing they're focused on right now. And I think that can be translated pretty, easily into not just the workplace, but, home and social situations. But I really want to I like a couple key points that you just had said is like not to be intimidated by the various people that, the levels of maybe your perceived, importance level, depending on where they're ranking in a business. And just remembering that everybody at their core is like a human being. Like they still want to be seen, heard, and, like liked about. So talking about just the like, hey, how you doing? Breaks the ice on a lot of stuff. But what's the importance of even like you as a child, it sounds like had the opportunity um to be exposed to a lot of different people, maybe adults, just because of that role. How do you feel like, having kids of your own, like is that still important to kind of put our kids into situations where they're exposed to lots of different people in different situations?
I believe it is, and that is how I've parented. I feel grateful now that my kiddos are teenagers, and as they're out interacting with other adults, and even when they were still in younger grades, we got feedback a lot that they were very articulate and engaging for someone their age.
Mhm.
And I think we had a lot of friends that chose not to have kids, but we made a point of still always getting together with them, and they would interact with our kids, and then obviously having other friends that had kids, when we would interact with them, we made a point of pointing out, like, hey, make sure you're saying hello to the parents and trying to make sure those engagements are happening so that they're realizing everybody in the room is someone you need to acknowledge, everybody in the room is someone that we're going to be interacting with, and try
Right.
to give them that good sense of just how to show up as a human.
Yeah, yeah, and we can take those cues from kids too, because sometimes I feel like kids are just more open to like talking to certain kids. I can see my own. I'm like, that one probably is not going to go up to somebody and talk to them. That one definitely would. So they'll talk your ear off, So there's different things that we have to do. But what do you feel like that? I know you touched on it as like how that helped you relate in all your leadership things, but how did that help you like build a company?
Well, certainly, I guess another little point about me that I think carried into how I built the company is my mom's was a flight attendant. She's retired, and she could talk to any stranger, and we can be in the most random places, and I'll look over and she's giving someone a hug, and I'm like, oh, did you run into someone you knew? And she's like, no, we just were talking for a second and I could tell they needed a hug. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So that was what I grew up with.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that carries into also just being empathetic with people. And so bringing that into how I have approached interacting with people, trying to build a business, it's how can I immediately try to find connections with these people?
Mhm.
Everybody is so strapped for time.
Yes.
So it's can you quickly establish a good connection?
Mhm.
I don't want to always be selling, I want to be helping. And
Right.
so if I can quickly understand what are your needs, how can I help you? I always bring my authentic self. I will say like, gosh, I've had a rough morning, like carpool was crazy or whatever. You know,
Yep. Yep.
I humanize the moment to begin
Mhm.
with because that's who I am. And if they don't like that, then that's okay, but maybe that's not a great business fit as
Right.
well. So I bring those elements and like I said, just trying to be empathetic and be authentic and find those points of engagement and asking not just how's the weather there or but
Right.
finding different ways to engage and offering things about myself gives that opportunity for the person to then latch onto something that maybe they're more willing to share or that we have in common.
Yeah, yeah, because I really feel like we all want to be connected at some point. I mean, that's kind of one of our main needs, I feel. Like we want to be connected. We're social beings, so we want to feel connections with others, but we don't often like take a step back, I think, and just, kind of feel the energy that's between two people. And it's like, oh, like your mom, you're like giving somebody a hug. I just kind of felt like they needed a hug. Like we need to take a step back because sometimes I feel like we're all in our heads and we have like this agenda and we want to do this and we want to get this out of the conversation. But it would go a lot smoother if we take that time to be authentic and make that connection. And
Absolutely.
and how do you feel like, I mean, do you feel like there's times where maybe you didn't do that and how did it turn out versus times that you did? And like, because I feel like it's not all roses. Like
Right.
we screw up like every day, but guess what? There's another opportunity just around the corner to, practice a better skill. So can you share like maybe, I feel like listeners need to hear like not always the good, but like, hey, I did this, it didn't work, but then I learned this and applied it. Like, is there any example? I'm not putting you on the spot, but
Yeah, gosh. I mean, as a sentiment, I'm sure there were times that I was maybe feeling more desperate and did that and didn't come across as my best self, but I'm struggling to think
well,
of a
that's
great
okay.
example
Just do a
off the top of my
general, just
head.
just general. Like, how does it feel like, you know, I think we all can kind of feel like, oh, we come across sometimes like a desperate need. Like we're just focused on ourselves. How do you step into something like that and like kind of feel like you're that way and then like, whoa, this is how I need to approach it. You probably have enough experience that, that's not even the case anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, I think a great example of that at a high level that I can think of is walking into any networking event. You're walking into the room, especially if it's at one where you are there to get new leads for your business. It's not purely to interact with your peers or your industry. And that can be hard. If you're going in with the mindset of, I need to come out of here with 5 leads or
Mhm.
however many
Yeah.
your marketing team told you they want you to get out of it, uh, that changes your mindset and you come in with that more desperate feeling. And I have always, again, tried to remember that I need to come in and be offering my authentic self and be willing to help because that's what it's all about. We're all trying to help each other, right? Even if you're selling them something, they're buying it from you as helping you. So you're helping them, they're helping you in a overly simplistic form. So
Right. Right.
going in and shedding that, okay, I have to get 5 leads and saying, I want to talk to and help X number of people by the time I leave this room can
Yeah.
give you both the goal that you need to attack the room and say, I want to help, gives you a different approach to how you're going to do that. And that help might be, gosh, I was just talking to this other person across the room and they were saying that, have you two connected yet? And then you can help make that connection. And that help is the
Mhm.
kind of help that is the positive energy you were just talking about. We're all wanting connection and we're all building this energy with between us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see the mindset shift. There's a mindset shift and there's an energy shift when we focus on others and serving others, helping others versus when we're like focused on our own agenda, like, okay, I got to get 5 leads. Like, I got to
Right,
do this. I mean,
right.
there's different ways of approaching a situation. How does it feel when you're actually walking, if you're approaching and going, okay, I just want to connect with, these about 5 people. I want to help them. How can I serve them? And then when you walk out of there, what's the benefit?
For me, if I feel like I've helped people, my bucket is full. That is one of the most rewarding opportunities for me to spend my time. And I I just wholly I love having that opportunity, and I can give a more specific example that recently I went into a coffee to catch up with somebody that I'd known earlier in my career, and I had nothing to ask of him, but I knew that there was potential he could help me. But I went in with I don't want to go in with any expectation. I want to go see how I can help him keep building his business and what can I learn about him since 15 years ago, the last time we spoke.
Right, right.
And that made that conversation so fun for me. And then we just rallied all these great ideas for each other and different reflections of how we present ourselves and different things like that. So I came away so wholly fulfilled from that conversation. And he emailed me afterwards, was like, wow, that was so great. I feel so great after talking to you. And I feel like I have so many ideas and so much energy to go apply to my business.
Mhm.
And the other funny story about that was he asked, do you remember how we met? And I said, no, actually, I don't. And he said, it was when we were both in recruiting and I was new to recruiting. So I reached out to a whole bunch of people and I said, hey, I'm new to this. I see that you're in a similar role. Would you be willing to chat with me to help me learn what I need to learn about what's working, what's not, etc.? And I said, sure. He said, I reached out to dozens of people and you were the only person that responded.
Wow.
And I
I'm
was
gonna
like,
get
really?
chills. Okay.
And he said, yeah, it was very impactful for me. I have always remembered you for that reason. And I thought, wow, that is just crazy. But again,
Yeah.
why not be helpful?
Right, right. And you were just kind of doing your authentic self. Like you were just hey, somebody's asking, hey, sure, let's, bounce some ideas off, no big deal. But you didn't know that he had reached out to like a ton of people and everybody else said no
Or just didn't respond,
or
right?
didn't
Yeah.
respond. Yeah. Like ghosting him. Just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, I'm too busy for that, whatever. But that just shows to me that just the value of showing up as yourself and really trying to serve, like help somebody. It probably didn't take too much of your time. It wasn't going to be, and heck, you didn't even remember it. So,
Yeah. I think that was the
know,
funniest part.
but I think that's like really true because I think a lot of times when people that are kind of naturally givers and helpers, we do things just naturally, but we don't know the impact.
Hmm.
And until like later, I mean, I was a counselor for like over 20 years. I never knew the impact I had. Actually, one time I was like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I don't feel like I'm doing any good, right? But then you get a story or you get somebody that says, hey, I really appreciated that. And I'm like, that was like 3 or 5 years ago. Like, oh, so somebody's, still remember. So like the good that we do, we may not see it immediately, but the ripple effect of it is huge.
Yep, absolutely. And do it because you want to be a good human, you want to share, whether or not you're ever going to find out if it had that ripple effect, but you
Right.
hope that you've had, right?
Well, yeah, you just kind of believe that, hey, if you're helping, it's going to do some good. You get out of good intentions. You show up with good intentions, something will happen. You don't have to know the effect of it.
Yep,
You just still feel good about it yourself. That's that's awesome. That's
I
awesome.
agree.
So, um, I'm like, okay, next question. Where do you want to go in this conversation? Is there something that you really feel like you need to share with the listeners about how you have, grown, how your experiences, mindsets, um, the importance of growth mindset and looking at things at opportunities?
I think that's a big one for me right now, coming out of this opportunity for reflection, is how well that has served me. in my career to, instead of in a moment of frustration or pain or disappointment or whatever that was, that can be so consuming. And not only is that not healthy for us, for our mental health and our physical health, but it's just a drain on like getting through an already challenging day-to-day life that our society has created for us in this modern age. So if I can pause and
Mhm.
say, okay, that sucked, but I can learn something here, and not go looking to finger point or go looking to do anything other than figure out a cause, a something that could have gone differently. Just really, there's so many possibilities of what you're going to learn when you pause for that moment to really just think about it. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time, but instead of the I should have said this or any of the other thoughts that you're stewing on, you really have to get yourself to pause and think about, okay, next time I can handle this differently. And if that's where you focus your energy, then going forward, you'll be able to handle that situation differently. And I am constantly reminding my kids, especially in these years where it feels like they're just everything's everybody else's fault and they're pointing the finger and nagging at each other. Um, but you see that stuff play out at work all the time as well. As a parent, I think it's made me a better leader and vice versa because I'm just seeing these dynamics play out all day, every day. But I'm reminding them that they have a choice, and that's really what that is. When you pause, you say, "I'm choosing to take a different outlook on this. I'm choosing to take this as a learning opportunity.
Mhm.
I can choose also in that moment how then I react if it's something that the reaction has not yet happened."
Mhm.
And I also was just reflecting, and I was surprised it popped in my head, and I thought, gosh, I haven't really thought about that experience in a long time, and was very emotional as I kind of relived it with myself and was journaling. That I had, without going into the really long story, someone really influential in my early life that was kind of a hero in how I grew up, how who I wanted to be. It was a gal who was dating my brother. My brothers are 15 months apart, so she was also like my other brother's best friend. Hung out with their crew of friends, and there was a tragic accident. She was killed in that accident, and it was up on the ski slopes, a snowcat. Just I'll leave it at that. And in that moment, a lot of things obviously happened and a lot of things could have gone differently, but she was such an amazing, kind, caring human that at her funeral there were 750 people, or celebration of life, I should say. And I, as a 9-year-old at the time, was blown away by 750 people showing
Wow.
up for a 16-year-old's celebration of life. And I thought, how amazing is that? What an impact she had
Yeah.
to have attracted all these people that came from far and wide. She had been on, trips to Mexico, things. And also, the other thing that I really learned from that was her parents, and especially in today's litigious society, could have turned around and sued that resort.
Mhm.
It was a freak accident. It was a summer event, and so the snow was just melting and it just started sliding out of control. Nobody could have done anything differently. I mean, placement, you can learn, but anyway.
Yeah.
So her parents could have sued them and they chose not to. They chose to instead figure out how they could all learn from that, and they partnered with that resort to host an annual ski race tournament in her memory. And that family of that resort became close family friends of the family of
Yeah.
the gal that passed away. And that to me has always also stuck with me of, when things don't go right, are you supposed to turn around and sue somebody? Or can you look at how can we handle this differently and maybe use it as a platform to
Yeah.
educate others or create a celebration opportunity? That ended up being one of the, ski racers only have so much time to race. So it ended up being a race that kicked off their season and was like one of their early season practice rounds. And what a great experience for all these young skiers
Right.
it went for 25 years. So
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that is, I mean, that's just taking something and just sharing, getting something more positive out of it. And we have choices. We have choices in how we handle it. That's a huge choice. That's a huge decision. And thank goodness, because the impact now that for 25 years beyond, I mean, that's so awesome. we also have to look at the daily choices that we have. And those daily choices add up to some of those bigger choices that we make later. You know,
Yeah, it's really a habit. It's a behavior and a habit that you have to practice. And if you practice getting mad and getting frustrated and blaming everybody else and whatever, whatever, versus practicing taking that moment of pause,
Mhm.
taking the deep breath. Okay, how do I want to respond here? What can I learn here? Any of those moments for learning and changing that outcome.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
choice.
it is a choice. And it's so, it's profound what we can do. And every day we can make a choice. How can listeners find out like more about you? Do you have something that they can, go to like, hey, Kristin, like what are you up to? Like, what do you share?
Honestly, I do this for fun because I had a coach that said you have a lot of fun stories and a great energy to share with people and help them learn their lessons, but I'm not on any social platform or actually that's a time choice that I make because I feel like I value that time so desperately. So that I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and that's why I like doing podcasts. And other than that, I'm I have a LinkedIn profile, but it's not very exciting. So yeah,
No problem.
I would just encourage people actually to instead of focusing on me, just think about the things that I may have spawned the ideas or thoughts about, and go into your podcast platform and maybe Google some other podcasts on that topic that might get your brain going. Or there's so many great books out there
Oh yeah.
that I've been listening to and reading in this time off that have really helped me get back to who's Kristen and who do I want to be as I show up to my next role.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always so much learning. And I feel like that is like the best advice I have like seen because it is like taking what you need. Each listener needs some different things. So taking what you need and going out and finding some more information about it. And you're right, there are a ton of podcasts, there's a ton of books, there's so much personal development. If you have a topic, go out and learn some more about it. And you really take that time to reflect for yourself on what it is that you feel like you need to grow into, like to become your next best self. And so
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you for
Yeah, and on that note, I I have no shame in saying that I have gone in and out of times of working with a therapist throughout my life and my career and using a coach, and there's no shame in having those resources available to you. And I think it's become a little bit more common, but even someone who is healthy and happy can benefit from having those check-ins. And you realize as you're checking in, wow, I've been really harboring that one thing for a little while. I'm glad I got to work it out before it became too big.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a former counselor, that I mean that happened, I help so many people they just need somebody to talk to that is non-judgmental, not judging at all, not judging at all, and whether it's therapist, coach, just different platforms, but they're always there to help you grow, to help
Yes.
you get better. And there is definitely no shame in that. Everybody should be doing it. I don't know where the shame came from, but like just rip it off. Like
Yes,
we all need somebody to help us. I mean, we don't know it all. Like,
you
and
don't.
just talking it out with somebody can really make huge shifts in how we see things and how we perceive things. And it's easier to go do something different. So thank you.
Thank you.
As we wrap up today, is there any thought or quote or just something that we haven't touched on that you would like to make sure the listeners hear today?
I think the ask would be to take the pause right after this podcast and think about what is my one action I'm going to take based on what I heard today that I'm going to go improve myself and learn and make that choice to have the growth mindset and move forward with some new lesson.
Awesome. And I will do that as I always go back and re-listen to conversations I have with people because it's kind of like I feel like a Disney movie or something when you're watching it, you watch it and you might watch it 10 different times and you will come up with something new every single time. So that's definitely what I'm going to do. So take Kristen's advice, take a pause, take time to reflect. Is there one thing that you got out of today's conversation that you can take with you to your next experience? Thank you for joining me, Kristin. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Peggy. I've really enjoyed the conversation.